what's called MCAS. The major difference will be, of course, that the cut score will be Massachusetts and not be a cut score that includes Mississippi and Arkansas. So we're going to have to figure out how you decide whether the grade 11 PARCC test is stronger, the same, weaker than a grade 10 MCAS, even though they're based, in many cases, on the same items, so far as we know, although they've got to come clean with that. We don't know. So we've got teachers being held accountable for a strange situation, a test that is based on standards. And here I want to move to the handouts that I have put over there for you to think about, because there may be some legal questions, and I leave that up to lawyers to think about. If PARCC and Smarter Balance are, as they are supposed to be, based on Common Core standards, and if MCAS is also now based on, to a large extent, Common Core standards, then we have to think about how good are those standards? How good are Common Core standards? Well, Milgram has a sheet that I urge you to look at, and it should be given to high school chairs in mathematics as well as science. Missing or delayed standards in Common Core's math standards. Huge number, because according to him, and no one has contradicted him, he does not see the standards in Common Core that will take kids from a weak Algebra 2 to a STEM major or a Calculus 1 or some kind of calculus course in college. There are some other problems, and you can see the early ones that he mentions here. Generally, he has said that by middle grades, our students are 2 grades behind internationally competitive peers in high-achieving countries. He was corroborated in a Wall Street Journal op-ed by a mathematician at Berkeley, California, whose name is Marina Ratner. A couple of months ago, she was looking at the 6th grade math curriculum for her grandchild in the Berkeley Public Schools and wrote an op-ed agreeing essentially with almost all of the points that he has raised. So you should take that and see what you think about these missing or delayed standards for Common Core. Is that what we want a test in Massachusetts based on? Now, that doesn't mean that high schools in Massachusetts, and I know some of them are certainly planning to make sure that there is a full trig course, a full pre-calculus course, ways to get to Calculus 1. That will be there for some students, certainly. How many, we don't know, but it won't come from Common Core standards, and there will be no incentive for high school math teachers to teach them, since they will not be evaluated on anything but Common Core standards. This will affect the science curriculum, because as we know, science depends on math. So if you have a weak math curriculum in high school, that means a weak science curriculum in high school. How do we get to STEM? As Professor Milgram says, instead of expanding the STEM pipeline, we are shrinking it. Is that the direction we expect it to go in? I have a page also, and I'll only take a few minutes and then stop, on the flaws in the English language arts standards, which was my area of expertise. And I've not only pointed out the missing standards and the overall deficits, but some of the problems posed by Common Core's ELA standards document for the study of history, because it was David Coleman's idea to put in literacy standards for the study of history. And when historians have looked at those literacy standards, they see the history curriculum being damaged by Common Core as well. So they've done a good job sort of mucking up the entire K-12 curriculum so far as a number of us are concerned. Some teachers think that they're getting students deeper, learning more deeply than they have been, reaching higher levels of critical thinking. We have no evidence for this, and I will close by saying it's going to be almost impossible to get any evidence because all of the indices have been aligned to Common Core. We will be locked into a box in which you cannot find out how dumbed down you've become, because the only test I know of today that is going to be free of the Gates Foundation influence and any Common Core manipulation is TIMSS, T-I-M-S-S, which is an international test of the math and science curriculum, and we've entered it as a country 2 times and have tied for first in science in grade 8. But that is the only test that is free of being aligned to Common Core. Whether we will be able to take part in that test in the future, we don't know, but it will be something to think about. It's the only way to find out as an independent index of what is happening to us with a Common Core-based curriculum. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have plenty of time for questions after Brian speaks, because it's really important that if we have people in here that are English and math teachers, that you can talk specifically to some of the standards. Our next speaker is Brian O'Connell. Brian O'Connell's been on the Worcester School Committee for 30 years? 31 years, okay, 31 years. I had the privilege of serving with Brian for 2 years. Brian is an independent, thorough school committee member. He voted no on the PARCC pilot testing in Worcester. As you know, we have 22 schools that are going to be doing the pilot test, the PARCC, and then we have other schools, I've left you a list of them, that will not be doing that. And it's really important, because to have a city so broken up, it just didn't make sense. And as we looked at the chain of command, the Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Chester, strong-armed the superintendents to strong-arm the principals to vote for the PARCC. Did they ask for any teachers, what their opinion was? No, they didn't. And besides that, there were principals that didn't have a clue of what the PARCC or the MCAS was. So we had a lot of manipulation happening, and now teachers that do not feel that they should be administering the PARCC are now going to have to do it in some schools. So I will, Brian, I'll leave it to Brian, and I'll give you a little signal around 15 minutes. Does that work? Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for giving up an evening with so many other options available to you tonight to study and talk about PARCC and the Common Core. It's been rare for me in the time I've been involved in education to see so many major issues that are so integral to education, to teaching, to the well-being of our children taking place, and so many dramatic activities occurring, but all very quietly. So I think a lot of teachers really don't know at this point how graphic, how involved, how sensitive some of the issues are that are really bubbling up through various other, mostly non-educational sources that'll have a major effect on education when they come to fruition that teachers need to be able to talk about. So obviously it's teacher evaluation, such as the forum that we had last Thursday, but for you to be here, to be educated as to what's taking place, and then to use the knowledge you have and talk to policymakers exactly about what your concerns and your issues are is absolutely vital. So thank you for being a core group to help start and maintain that discussion, really for the benefit of educators, but even more so for the benefit of our young people. So the PARCC test itself started to me as having an initial problem when I realized that it was being proposed for us when it really hadn't been fully developed. It had right at the very beginning a whole range of accommodations for students who had learning challenges of one kind or another that weren't available in the test itself, which to me was certainly reason enough to be concerned about it. School systems that utilize Google's Chrome system actually had an even more extensive range for this technology-based test of issues that would be a problem for many students even in taking the test. So right off the bat, you know that there's a significant issue with whether we could even, whether that's a test that we even should administer. Now that we looked at more expansive reasons, there are even more detailed reasons why PARCC itself warrants very close scrutiny. Does it have any advantages to it? It has some pluses. Obviously it's technology-based, so it has the potential to give rapid feedback to teachers of exactly how students are doing, what they're mastering. It purports to go into depth in really assessing students' problem-solving skills and giving, obviously, at the end of the year, an analysis of what progress they've made. There's an optional component to it. Whether it's available or not, at least it's supposed to be part of the overall plan, which would be a mid-year evaluation. So there would be some strands in it that, in fact, could be potentially beneficial. But is the test itself something that really warrants the time and effort and money that goes into it? I suggest strongly, as Sandra is, that it is not. And if we look at education itself, we really find out why that's the case. In many ways, all the issues with education really boil down to a simple, basic equation, which is a teacher in the classroom. And we try, ideally, to have that teacher equipped with the resources, the material, the staff development programming, and hire the best teachers we can so we have the best component for instruction, with the best curriculum we can provide the students. The other component are the students, and we try, with much of what we do, to cut through the challenges and the chaos that they sometimes bring to school, and the difficulties that are in their environment, to create for them an optimal learning situation. And then we have an excellent teacher working with a strong curriculum and a group of students who are ready to learn. That's really the focus. And for those of us who may look at education at times from the point of view of its financial aspect, and being a chief operations or financial officer for a school district, that's always part of my consideration. But we pay for time. We have the best people we can, but we really pay to give as much instructional time to our students as we possibly can. So testing is something you look at carefully because it is almost by definition not instructional time. It's time away from instruction. It's time that goes into the teacher's effort to equip the students with how to do the test and then to administer the test and then to deal with the reports that come back from the test. So a lot of time is pulled away